Welcome to the Catholic Journey with Deacon Pat Kearns, where the road doesn't end when the journey does. In our last episode, we walked the Camino. We encountered two men, Michael and Thomas, carrying burdens they didn't fully understand until the road began to reveal them. They experienced moments they couldn't explain, encounters that were too precise to be coincidence, too personal to ignore. And somewhere between the steps, the silence, and the surrender, they were changed. But today we enter the part of the journey that most people never talk about, because the greatest challenge of a spiritual encounter is not experiencing it, it is living it after. What happens when the road ends, but the questions remain? What happens when you return home, but you're no longer the same person who left? This is the story of what comes next. They had reached Santiago. They had stood in the cathedral. They had whispered the words, "I believe, I'm free." But the Camino was not finished with them, because some journeys do not end at a destination. They begin there. The airport felt strange, loud, fast, artificial. The world hadn't changed, but they had. Michael noticed it first. People rushing, phones out, conversations shallow. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he belonged in that rhythm anymore. Thomas felt it differently. He felt exposed. Because on the Camino, everything had been honest, raw, real. But now he could feel the temptation creeping back. To hide, to suppress, to go back to normal. And that's where they both realized something unsettling. The hardest part of the Camino is not walking it, it's living it after. Days passed, then weeks. Michael went back to work. Same office, same routine, same expectations. But something inside him resisted. The conversations felt empty. The goals felt incomplete, and one afternoon, sitting at his desk, he caught himself staring at nothing. "What am I doing?" he whispered. Because success without meaning now felt unbearable. Thomas's struggle was quieter. The grief hadn't disappeared, but it had changed. It no longer controlled him, but now he had a choice: return to the old patterns or live differently. And that choice felt heavy, because transformation requires action. And this is where most journeys end, because it's easier to remember a moment than to live a new life. But something in them would not let them go back. It was Michael who said it first, "I think I need to go to confession." Thomas looked at him. "I've never been," Michael admitted. There was hesitation. Silence, because this wasn't theoretical anymore. This was personal. "I think I need to go too," Thomas said quietly. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to be free. The church was quiet, dimly lit. They sat in the pews, waiting. Michael's hands were shaking. "What do I even say?" he whispered. Thomas looked forward. "Just tell the truth." That was the Camino, and now it followed them here. Michael entered first. The confessional felt small, almost suffocating. "Bless me, Father," he began, his voice unsteady. "I don't even know where to start." And then it came. Not perfectly, not structured, but honestly. Years of control, pride, distance from God. "I've lived like I didn't need him," he said. And for the first time, he heard it out loud. There was silence. Then the priest spoke, gently. "God has been waiting for this moment." Michael closed his eyes. Tears came, not from guilt, but from being known and still loved. And then the words, "I absolve you." And in that moment, something broke. Chains he didn't ever know that he was carrying fell. not emotionally, spiritually. He walked out different, not fixed, but free. Thomas entered next. He didn't hesitate, because he already knew what he needed to bring. "I've been holding on to something for years," he said. His voice didn't shake, but his heart did. "I never forgave myself." The words hung in the air, and for the first time he said something. The regret, the loss, the guilt. "I thought if I held on to it, I was honoring them." Silence. Then the priest said something he would never forget. "God is not asking you to carry what Christ already died for." Thomas broke, not in pain, in surrender, because for years he had held on to something that was never his to keep. And when the priest spoke the words of absolution, Thomas felt it. Not just forgiveness, freedom, real, deep, lasting. They walked out together. Neither spoke at first, because some moments don't need words. Finally, Michael did say, "I feel lighter." Thomas nodded. "So do I." And then he added, "For the first time, I'm not looking back." Life didn't become perfect. That's how God works. But it became different. Michael began to pray, not out of obligation, but desire. Thomas began to live freely, not forgetting the past, but no longer defined by it. And their friendship deepened, because it wasn't built on convenience. It was built on truth. Maybe you've had a moment, a retreat, a powerful experience, but you've wondered, what now? This is what now looks like. Not perfection, but surrender. Not clarity in everything, but trust in something greater. And maybe the next step in your journey is the same as theirs. Not another road, but a return to confession, to grace, to freedom. This is The Catholic Journey, and I am your host, Deacon Pat. And sometimes the greatest miracle is not what happens on the road, but what happens when you finally come home. God bless.